Hey, everybody, and welcome to a special video episode of Phil and the Mic. I'm always Darren Michael. With me, my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, Sunday Phil Calise. How are you, Phil?
I'm doing well. And it is a special edition coming to you live this way and with some special guests. So this is gonna be a fun Super Bowl edition. Looking
It,
forward to it.
it's going to be fun. And I just wanted to thank you for giving us some time. And our listeners may not know, but right now Phil is actually in a hotel room in Chicago. He's actually trying to broker a deal between the city and the teachers union. So way to go, Phil, man. I think I speak for all of us when I say thank you for your work, man. I hope it works out well, and you're just unbelievable what you do. Every week you're doing something different.
Here I am just trying to enjoy a Super Bowl edition, and you always have me with an extra job. So, appreciate that.
Well, this is exciting, man. This is our Super Bowl preview episode. Before I get started, I just wanted to kind of introduce our two special guests, and you all know these two because they've both been guests on the show. We've got our man on the mark, and as you can see, for some reason he's a big Eagles fan. But the reason we call him on the mark is because this guy, when he makes a prediction, man, it is dead on. What's going on the mark? How are you today, my friend?
Doing great, man. I mean, I'm excited to be back here. I think I was early days, episode 7. I think you guys are up to like 3,000 or something like that.
Yeah, 3,400. Yeah.
Introduce, Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles over here, and Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles over here. So you guys so you guys know him. Know, both those guys. They're here too. So be on here, man. I'm excited about it.
Fair enough, man. I like it. Well, thank you for joining us. And then, of course, the man who was just on our previous episode, Playoff Paul, because you may not know this, but in the last 10 seasons, this guy at the beginning of the season has predicted every single team to make the NFL playoffs. Playoff Paul, thanks for coming back, man. How are you today?
Glad to be here. I understand you broke your record for your Nielsen ratings last week on the podcast.
Yes.
Not to take too much credit for that, but I'm glad to be back here. Although I do have to tell you that if I had known that you'd be inviting an Eagles fan, the tanking, low-life, scum Eagles, I might not have come on. Mark, it's good to see you.
Wow. Paul, basically, like, if you just had 2 more points against the Eagles and didn't lose 22-21, you would have, controlled your own fate. So you can't.
One third down catch, but we don't need to go back there again.
Yeah.
Listen, we will make sure that we talk about this at another time because this could actually be a lot of fun. So let's just get right into it. Guys. Phil, you want to start us off with our first topic here?
Yeah, so I thought what we would just open up with before we get into obviously all the exciting action about the game itself is just in general, when we think of Super Bowls, we all have our fond memory of a Super Bowl. Obviously, we got an Eagle fan here who I'm sure is got a more recent fond memory. And we have a Giant fan here who has nothing but loads of fond memories. So us up here with Jet fans, not as many, but I thought we'd go around and just share either our favorite Super Bowl moment or our favorite game, whatever you felt like. So we'll kick it off with Paul. Paul, playoff Paul, what's your favorite fondest Super Bowl memory?
Well, as you said, Phil, I mean, there are so many for me to choose from. I mean, Mark, pointed out to his one Super Bowl MVP. I mean, I could have talked about Bill Simpson's performance in '86 or O.J. Anderson in '90 or either of Eli Manning's Super Bowls. But, the single memory for me that will always stand out was 1990. It was Scott Norwood wide right. And the reason for that, for me, is just, I was in the 8th grade and it was probably the height, middle school, the height of every boy's, probably football fandom. And I was obsessed with the Giants that year. I went to the training camp probably a dozen times, cut out every article out of the New York Star Ledger that season. And I just remember the feeling vividly, and it will stick with me for the rest of my life.
Listen, that's a good one. And what I will say about that game is I recall vividly being at my uncle's house for the Super Bowl. And because Scott Norwood missed that kick, he lost $10,000 on a Super Bowl box. So
Wow.
there was no skin in the game in that household for the Giants or Bills, but there was a lot of curse words being spouted out at Mr. Norwood. So I do remember that as a young boy listening to that. So that was
my guess is that that's probably not his favorite Super Bowl memory. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but
probably not. Especially that he thought the 10. I think he had already spent 9 of the 10 grand. So yeah, probably not.
It always happens that way.
So Mark, what do you got? I mean, I know you got a recent Super Bowl ring. So what's your favorite memory?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's definitely not when Donovan McNabb threw up after being hungover and blew that Super Bowl against the Patriots. It wouldn't be that one. Definitely not that one. I'm not surprised that Paul picked how they won by someone else losing. Typical Giants fan. But I clearly am going to go with the Philly special, right? I mean, that play with Nick Foles, I mean, that is an epic play. In Super Bowl history, and just to defeat Tom Brady kind of head to head like that. It's only one Super Bowl to Paul's point, but that city, man, it brought so much joy to that city, and really took a lot of the negadelphia out of the negativity in the city. And, it was really a great win. So that was pretty exciting.
And I got to say about that game, what was nice about that game was that it didn't really feel like anyone lost that game. I mean, it was like the last team with the ball won.
Yep.
There wasn't a lot of punting in that game, and there was just a lot of offense, but it was an exciting game. So, and you guys do have something in common. You're the only 2 fan bases that have beaten Brady in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So I know Giant fans hate the fact that they had to relinquish that crown, because as having half my family be Giant fans, that was a badge of honor they all carried. So I know that stung mightily. Correct, Paul?
It did. But, I got my Alabama sweatshirt on, and SEC, me an Alabama fan, but if Alabama's not there, you just root for the SEC team. And you're right that it was a badge of honor. We were very proud of it. But if there was going to be another team that did it, I'm glad it was somebody from the NFC.
Yep.
Look, I feel like we're brokering peace already between these two. This is nice.
Let's not go over.
This is
Man,
nice.
Phil, I think you might, Phil, on the next podcast, I might have to mention that you've been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize after this performance. Broker.
So not easy to do. Not easy to do. So Darren, we're long-suffering Jet fans, but you're not as long-suffering as me. I know you're a Jet fan, but not quite as long as I am. So what's your fondest memory?
My fondest memory, it's really only one way that I can even let you guys know what my fondest memory was.
Look at the rhythm, man. Look at the rhythm on those guys. Man.
The Bears shuffling crew, shuffling on down, doing it for you. We're so bad, we know we're good. Blowing your mind like you knew we would. We're just strutting our stuff for everyone. We're not here to start no trouble. We're just here to do the Super Bowl shuffle.
Sweetness, and I like to dance.
I figured you guys would get a kick out of that one. That is, back I don't know if you guys knew this. I grew up, well, I didn't really grow up until I was through second grade, I was living outside of Chicago. So I actually was a Bears fan. And I can remember when this came out, I actually recorded it on my tape player when it was on the radio. And I would just play that thing over and over and over. And I would do like all the moves and everything. I'd like when Walter Payton come on, my voice would go up higher, and I'd wear the sunglasses with McMahon, all that stuff. So I still think that 85 Bears team is the greatest team in history. I'm going to say it, and I believe it. And I thought that it was just, the guys were so animated. The first team that came out with their own video, which I thought was incredible. A great game. And that is by far and away my favorite memory.
Okay.
How about you, man? Come on.
So for me, I'm torn between two, and one is completely like a hater memory of being. So I'll give you a walkthrough. I was at a Super Bowl party, and there was again these two fan bases I don't really care about. I'm not obviously I don't like the Patriots, and when they were playing the Seahawks in that very famous Super Bowl, there was, you know how you're at these Super Bowl parties, oftentimes you don't know some of the folks there. There was just an obnoxious family of Seahawk fans. I don't know the guy from a hole in the wall. They were just so obnoxious. And to watch the ending of that Super Bowl and to watch Russell Wilson get picked, and when everybody knew you just hand the ball to Marshawn Lynch and let him walk in the end zone, and it ends that way, to watch just the utter devastation on this obnoxious fan's face it's priceless. It's a memory that'll stick with me forever. And I know I'll probably get that back one day because I took so much joy in watching this guy suffer in that moment. I'm sure the Jets, when they ever make a Super Bowl, will lose that way probably.
Yeah.
But on a positive note, my favorite Super Bowl is actually, I've always been a big Brett Favre fan. So watching him, oddly enough, beat the Patriots in that Super Bowl, the pre-Belichick Patriots, that was like just watching him run up and down like a little boy up and down the sideline that game and that year. I always felt like he had to win a ring. So enjoying his career and watching him get that ring in that game, some of those moments of him running up and down the sideline just stick with me. So that's really my favorite Super Bowl memory.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. That's listen, there's so many great ones. The only thing that I can say is I hope that this is just a fun Super Bowl to watch. That's it. You know, we just want to see a good game, maybe a shootout, you know, maybe some exciting stuff going on, maybe something that you don't expect. You know, that's what would be great. But before we get into some of our great topics, I just want to throw out a couple quick facts to everybody. And you may or may not know this, but the kind of the cool thing about the Super Bowl is actually the first female official, Sarah Thomas, will be working. And nowadays, with everything that's going on in the world, that's pretty cool. You know, there's a lot of firsts for all kinds of things going on, and I love that. Another first is the fact that there's a team that's actually playing on their home field, which is kind of funny that that's never happened in 55 Super Bowls, you know? So that's a really cool thing. But I found it really interesting that they're doing everything they can to make sure that it doesn't seem like a home field game. But let's be honest, you're sleeping in your bed, you're doing your routine, you're taking the same route to the stadium, you're playing in your stadium. So whether it's whether they're trying to make it not a home game or not, it's a home game. Let's be honest. So they're actually going to have 22,000 fans in there, which is probably the biggest NFL crowd of the season, which is exciting. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is that the average ticket price for this thing has gone up 30% versus last year. The average ticket price for this game is $8,000. That is just a lot of money for a ticket, you know? And to be honest with you, I can see perfectly fine from my couch. So
a little supply and demand issue this year more than most, right?
A little bit, right? Well, hey, listen, if they can get it, why the heck not? You know, I think an interesting thing is that we've got a chance to see a back-to-back Super Bowl winner for the first time since 04-05 when New England did it. And couple things that I was really shocked about. I don't know how this is going to affect the Bucs. And I don't know if everybody's heard this, but their barber came down with COVID, the team barber. And, you know, these guys, I mean, when they take off their helmets after they're done, if they win, they may not take off their helmets. They're going to be too embarrassed about what's on their head under their helmet. So I'm really concerned for those guys. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about was something really cool. The kicker for the Bucs, I don't know how to even pronounce his name, Succop?
Suck up, yeah.
Yeah, he's a suck up.
Yeah.
He is a suck up.
Did anybody realize that in 2009, he was Mr. Irrelevant? I thought that was kind of interesting. The last guy taken by the Kansas City Chiefs, who he played for 5 years.
Wow.
Just wanted to put it out there.
That's a nice little fun fact. I like that one. I didn't know that.
I figured that you guys would probably enjoy that. So those are just some quick facts, but we're going to jump into some fun stuff right now. And I'm going to go to you first, Mark, and I want you to, the first topic I think we need to talk about is Brady versus Belichick. And I want to get your views on this thing, and it was always going to be, hey, this is the year that we were going to see who it was. Is it Brady? Is it Belichick? And obviously Brady had a great year. Belichick didn't. So what are you thinking? You thinking it is Brady?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one to call, but it's hard to argue against the Brady, truthers out there that said it's really Brady all along.
Yeah.
He does audible, even when he was on the Patriots, he audibles a lot out of plays that are called, from Belichick and the offensive coordinator there, and he knows how to get the most out of guys, right? He's the GOAT, right? And you look at Chris Godwin, who is actually from Delaware, my hometown, my home state or whatever, and went to Penn State. He was number 12 since he was a little kid. He literally gave his number to Tom Brady without even being asked for no money, right? Usually players sell their number, the player coming in does. He gave it to him. He's like, Tom Brady, here you go. And Tom didn't even ask, right? So I'm really leaning toward Belichick has a long coaching history. You look at him in the Browns and all these different other teams, didn't have a lot of great success. He gets to New England, he gets Tom Brady, he gets a couple pieces, and I'm really leaning toward the Brady side of this. I think Brady, because of his way of manipulating the players in a good way, getting the best out of them. Like he can like you look at Antonio Brown, right? Antonio Brown was a disaster. He signs on the Bucs and you don't hear anything from him. He just plays. You don't even know he's out there. He's catching touchdowns here and there. He's doing his part. He says nothing. Yep. Belichick's not there to calm him down. Tom Brady is. And so I'm on the Tom Brady side of this. I think Belichick was exposed this year. The Patriots were a horrific team. They didn't have the parts, but they never have the parts, right? They always have Tom Brady to pull them out and get all these like kind of tossed off or, thrown out players and bringing them in. Yeah. So I'm definitely on the Brady side of this. I mean, it's only 1 year, so time will tell, but I'm going with Brady on this one.
Okay. All right. Good perspective. Paul, do you agree with that?
No, listen, nobody could argue as much as I would like to that Tom Brady's a great quarterback, going, first ballot Hall of Fame, the whole 9 yards. But you said it yourself, Mark. When you look at Belichick's body of work going back to when he was the defensive coordinator with the Giants, every single coaching role that he's had, whether it was defensive coordinator of the Giants, head coach of the Browns, defensive coordinator of the Jets, and then with the Patriots, he's been a winner. And throughout the course of the last, 15 years that he's been with the Patriots, I mean, Brady has gotten hurt, and Belichick has brought no-name quarterbacks, that were second, third stringers, and they have won with them. They didn't win Super Bowls with them, right? And so I don't want to take anything away from Brady. When you look at the Patriots this year, they were horrific, right? They had a terrible defense with a ton of holes. The biggest thing that I think really hurt the Patriots, if you remember, they started out the season pretty, not too bad. Cam Newton came in, he was playing pretty good. He got COVID, was never, ever close to being the same again. And then the team just completely fell apart. I think it'll be really interesting to see what the Patriots do next year. But, in the meantime, congratulations to Tom Brady. He's as old as some of us here on this podcast, and he's out there doing things that I couldn't have done, 20 years ago.
It's true. Yeah, it is pretty amazing. So Phil, bring us home on this topic. So you've got on one hand, you've got Brady, you got on the other hand, Belichick. I'm going to put a little spin on this when I ask you about it. Is Brady the all-time greatest quarterback, and is Belichick the all-time greatest coach?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in between here on this. I think that, we have a little recency bias, right? So the question being posed right now, the obvious answer is, I mean, Brady took Tampa to a Super Bowl, Belichick 7-9 at home, so the recency bias on this feels like it's obviously, Brady. I think if you dig in a little bit and you think of Brady's full body of work, they don't win without each other. I mean, it was the perfect marriage for a lot of reasons. But I think it's also easy to forget Brady was pulled to a few of these titles early on with a great New England defense. New England, back in early Brady's, early career, was manage the game and let us win with our defense.
That's right.
And so a few of these rings were won on the backs of Richard Seymour and an incredible defense and managing a game. When they pulled off the upset on the Rams, he managed that game. What Brady has had, which is why if you think about his career, it's very similar in some regards to Joe Montana. which as a Notre Dame fan, it was something that always bothered me early on that he was getting those comparisons. But Brady's got the clutch gene, the clutch gene that, you know, Peyton Manning never had, right? That, you know, he seemed to shrink in big games and Brady would find a way to make every play that mattered in a big game. And that's what Joe Montana really hung his hat on, right? From Notre Dame through his Niner career. He'd make every big throw that had to be made. Didn't have the greatest arm, didn't have the greatest athleticism, didn't have anything great, but every time he turned around, he beat you. And that's what Brady is to me. There's nothing so great about Tom Brady. Yeah, he throws a nice deep ball. He's not athletic. He couldn't beat any one of us in a 40-yard time. You know, he's just not going to wow you. Everybody's went back and looked at his combine, right? The biggest joke of all, his combine video when he ran in a t-shirt and ran like a 5.2 40 and looked like he was like an accountant that just showed up. And everything he's done since then is, you know, be, you know, the most clutch football player for 2 decades at this point. So I think it's a combination of both. And I do think in Belichick's defense, he was dealt a tough hand this year, right? I mean, 9 or 10 players opted out pre-COVID. A lot of his best defensive players. You could make a case that was a heck of a 7-9 season with a washed-up Cam Newton. So I don't take anything away from Belichick. I'd hate to game plan against him. I think the whole league likes when he's sitting on the sideline and not in the playoffs. Yep. But, you know, I think they needed each other. But if Brady gets this win Sunday night, it's going to be a case closed argument for most people.
Yeah.
So I think he's got to close the deal Sunday night for that to be the case, though.
Yeah, you know, it's incredible because, you know, Tom Brady has done so many things. I mean, he's a 14-time Pro Bowler, which is ridiculous. He's thrown for almost 80,000 yards, 3-time MVP, 581 touchdowns, first all time. The guy's 43 years old. He's been in 10 Super Bowls, and he threw 40 touchdown passes this year. So the guy is doing something right, man. I don't know what it is, but I've already decided that in my next life, I want to be Tom Brady. If for no other reason, I want to make $25 million a year and not be the breadwinner in my household. That's really what I'm looking for. So, but yeah, it's just, I personally think that Brady is the greatest all-time quarterback. And I really think that Belichick is the greatest all-time coach. And I'm glad that we've been around to see both of those. So that's exciting. Mark, I wanted to ask you a question. You must be a big Andy Reid fan. You must be. So I'm curious, what was it like when he left the Eagles, and how do you feel about him now? I know he was always kind of that head coach that could always win the division but couldn't win the big game. And now that he has that monkey off of his back, you know, what do you feel? You know, how do you feel about him?
Yeah, I mean, I know Eagles fans, you know, love Andy Reid. I love Andy Reid. You know, and it's, you know, Eagles fans, I think, you know, it's kind of a love-hate, right? If your team's not performing, the Eagles, the fans will let you know. They boo. It's very rare for fans to boo your own team. But if you don't perform well, that's just the way that the Philly fans express themselves to say, look, I'm not happy with what's going on. So Andy definitely got his shares of boos. He has some clock management issues in terms of calling like weird timeouts, the wrong spot, things like that. But, you know, nowadays, everybody in this area, the Philadelphia area, is rooting for Andy Reid to win. You know, I think he's beloved here in the city. You know, kind of after he's left, he got us to multiple championships. He got us to a Super Bowl. You know, and he's a beloved figure here in Philly. Everybody's rooting for him. Big Red. You know, I think he's gonna. I hope he wins. I think he's gonna win, but we'll see. You know, it's a little disappointing that he wasn't able to kind of close the deal on some of those past teams. But I think we all have really good feelings about Andy Reid.
Yeah, he's any doubt in your mind that he's a Hall of Famer right now?
Zero doubt.
Okay.
He's a shoo-in. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so too. Paul, you know, you've got a little Giant connection going with this Super Bowl too, you know, and the interesting thing here now is, you know, the Chiefs have this defensive coordinator on their team. And it turns out that he, as a defensive coordinator, has beaten Brady twice in the Super Bowl already. So what does it do to that guy's legend, Spagnuolo, if he's able to beat Brady 3 times in Super Bowls?
Well, it would be incredible. And I will put this in preface to my answer. The connection to the Giants to the Super Bowl goes beyond Spagnuolo. There are actually 11 former Giants that will be on the field on Sunday, which
Wow.
something I found out today, which is pretty incredible.
That's
Spagnuolo knows how to beat Brady. I mean, anybody that's watched the NFL knows that, Tom Brady's, if he's Superman, his kryptonite is pressure in his face.
That's
He
right.
doesn't like it. He get his focus from downfield, away from the receivers. He's not as effective. He starts to rush his throws. His accuracy goes down. That was a formula that the Giants used in both Super Bowls, and I expect that we'll see a lot of that from the Chiefs on Sunday.
Yeah, I would think so too. Moving away from Tom Brady, Phil, tell us what you like about Mahomes, and is this guy really that good?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right,
listen, Patrick Mahomes is doing things at his age. I mean, since he came into the league, that's just incredible, right? Because he blends something that I don't think anybody's seen yet.
Yeah.
I would say the closest person to it was Aaron Rodgers, but obviously took several years before he took over as the starting quarterback, and Mahomes did it right out of college.
Right.
But just the combination of elusiveness in the pocket and ability to throw on the run so accurately, such a strong arm. I mean, everything about him. If it's a video game, you're giving him an A+ across the board. There's nothing he doesn't do well, which is amazing to have no flaw. I think the interesting thing, and I want to get your guys' take, is when you think of Mahomes, and everybody does this, so you want to be cautious, right? You start thinking, how many more championships can Kansas City win? How many, can he chase down somebody like a Brady, as sacrilege as that is to say, just because he's so young? I think the interesting thing is, as good as Mahomes is, there's way more pressure on him to win this game. And I say that because, I would think he has aspirations of being considered the best quarterback to ever play. He has no reason not to feel that way 3 seasons in, as good as he's been, right? But he lost to Brady in the AFC title game as a rookie. And it was controversial, to say the least. Brady threw a pick that was then, taken back. And he got another do-over at it, and then they won. But if he loses to 43-year-old Brady Sunday night, and Brady goes to 7 rings, it's case closed. He'll never catch him. I don't even just mean in rings. I mean in perception of ever being as good as him. He'll have that hanging over his head forever. He lost to him twice. Let's face it, Brady's at the end of his career, whether he plays another year or two. And I would make a bet that if he beats Mahomes this Sunday night, he could be convinced to retire and go out that way. I'm not saying he will. I know he's floated this idea he's going to play till he's 45, 46. I know he wants to say he is, but I think some good people are going to get in his ear in terms of marketing and in terms of his legacy and allure of leaving it off a title, off beating the future GOAT, so to speak, the future greatest player, and kind of just drop the mic and walk out. I think there's going to be a pull that he doesn't even know exists yet to do that if he does pull it off. So interested to hear what you guys think about Mahomes, Brady, and if Brady wins, does it shut the door on Mahomes ever catching him? What do you think, Paul?
I actually thought about that earlier in the week. I was listening to the Fan up here in New York, and they were talking about it, and it becomes very, very difficult if Mahomes loses this game on Sunday to think that he can ever catch Brady, which is a shame when you think about how young he is and how many more years he has to play. But you start to stack it up, and statistically, it becomes really, really difficult, despite whatever else he does from here. Which, to your point, then it could be this thing that just hangs over him for his whole career, which would be a real shame.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, what are your thoughts on Mahomes? We know what Brady's career look like. What do you think his career, when he looks back at the end of his career, what do you think we're going to see out of Patrick Mahomes, assuming that he's able to stay healthy?
Yeah, Phil had mentioned it before, my take on Brady in terms of the recency bias and him kind of getting the Super Bowl, and that's definitely legit. But I think we got a little recency bias in the opposite direction. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is the only quarterback to ever be in 2 Super Bowls under the age of 25.
Yeah.
So if he wins here, that's 2 Super Bowls, to Tom's 6, and I think he can catch him easily because he's so young, he's so athletic, he's got a cannon of an arm, and he's not even a run-first quarterback. He's a pass-first quarterback that can run athletically and change plays with his feet, but he doesn't have to. So, I mean, I think he's the next level quarterback. I think 15, 20 years from now, I think we'll look back and say Tom Brady was one of the greatest. I think Patrick Mahomes definitely can be the greatest because on any and all metrics, he is kind of head and shoulders above Tom Brady. Athletics, arm strength, legs, everything. He doesn't have the football IQ that Tom does, but that comes with experience. But I think injury is key, right? Running quarterbacks tend to get hurt and their careers get cut short. He's not a running quarterback. He does run, but he's not a running quarterback. So you got to really watch the injury factor with him. I mean, he had some scares with the craziest concussion I've ever seen, which is a carotid artery concussion. Never even heard about it in my life. That guy's arm got stuck under his neck and he kind of knocked him out UFC style. And then he had a turf toe. So you just got to watch his durability. And that's one thing with Tom Brady. The guy's in hyperbaric chambers 24/7. He never gets hurt. He'll get drilled, tackled. Nothing happens to him. Yeah. I think his bones are made of rubber or something, but injury is the key factor here. I don't think either take's wrong. I mean, it's hard to guess now, but if I was betting, given that, Mahomes is 25 years old and in his 2nd Super Bowl already, I'm going to put a little bit of money on Mahomes because I think he could probably surpass Brady if he stays healthy.
Interesting. I'm going to put a question out there to everybody, to all you guys about Mahomes, and then we're going to move on to the next topic here. So in the history of football, there's actually been 12 quarterbacks that have won multiple Super Bowls. All right. All of them are in the Hall of Fame, except for, and I think that we're all going to agree, Roethlisberger, who I think we all are going to agree is going to get in the Hall of Fame, right? Both Mannings, obviously Peyton is a lock, and I think Eli's a lock too. So the only guy that actually has won more than 2, that's won at least 2 Super Bowls and is not even in the Hall of Fame discussion is a guy named Jim Plunkett, back from the 70s Raiders teams, which is interesting to me. And that's a story for another time. But my question to each of you is, let's say the Chiefs win, Mahomes is the MVP. In the offseason, they find that concussion has caused something in his brain and he could never play football again. Is this guy a Hall of Famer after 4 seasons? Mark, what do you think?
No, not at all. I mean, he doesn't have the body of work to qualify for the Hall of Fame. I mean, he needs a much more, lengthy career. I think he'll go the way of Jim Plunkett. I mean, I think Jim Plunkett was a Heisman Award winner too. Very, very under-heralded quarterback for his accomplishments.
Yep.
Beat the Eagles, so I hate him. But besides that, by the way, that was I think it was the first or only wild card team to win a Super Bowl, that Oakland Raiders team.
Interesting.
A little fun fact for you. So, yeah, I don't think so at all. I mean, you have to have a much larger body of work than 4 seasons to get yourself into the Hall of Fame. But I think he would definitely be, in the conversation. But I don't think he would make it.
Okay. Paul, you agree with that?
No, you know what? And I think you got to keep in mind the NFL. This is the NFL of 2021. And particularly because of the way you set the question up, Darren, if it was that his career ended because of a concussion, there'd be a heavy push not to see him penalized for the fact that he had to discontinue his career because of a concussion and let what he'd accomplished stand there. So now, that said, if he, next season, preseason, he, shreds his knee or something like that and is never the same quarterback, maybe we're having a different discussion. But because you asked the question specifically setting it up, tying it to the concussion, I think he gets into the Hall of Fame.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Phil, you're the deciding vote here, man. What do you think? Concussion puts him out, MVP, 2 Super Bowl rings, 4 seasons. What are you thinking?
I think he gets the very I think he gets the put. Let's just say he blew out his knee, whatever the season-ending or career-ending injury is. I think there would be such a push to say some people would come out and say he's the greatest quarterback to ever play through 4 seasons, and that was enough for them to put him in. I just think he'd be one of those rare exceptions, right? Even though 4 seasons is such a small sample, because I don't think anybody believes at 25 he's not that good. So if something fluky happened, I think he'd get in. Let's hope that doesn't happen though.
Yeah, let's hope it is. He's got a lot of good football ahead of him. The last thing that I want to talk about before we move on to a couple other things here is the Gronk versus Kelsey battle. I read an article. I thought this was interesting. I read an article about how it's kind of passing the torch, when you think about it. And I thought about that, and I'm like, all right, well, let me take a little bit of a look and see what these two guys are all about. The funny thing is they're literally the exact same age, which I thought was kind of funny. And it's like Kelsey has more catches, but Gronk has way more touchdowns. So it's not really passing the torch, but are these two guys are obviously two incredible tight ends. They've had incredible careers, and Kelsey still has more football in him, and we'll see what happens to Gronk. But it's obviously not the passing of the torch. But I mean, is Kelsey? Is he head and shoulders the best tight end in the game right now? Paul, what do you think about that?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, he's certainly, in the top 2 or 3. In terms of importance to the team, though, I think it's pretty clear that he's number 1. I mean, and we're going to talk a little bit later about the Chiefs' offense. Travis Kelce is critical to that offense.
Absolutely. Mark, what are your thoughts about that? You think there's another tight end out there? I know that you've got a pretty good one in Philadelphia, but what do you think, Kelsey? How do you think he ranks among his peers?
Yeah, I mean, this year he's by far the best tight end in football. There's no one even close to him. Gronk was kind of a bit player on the Buccaneers. When you look at their offensive production, and they're really, when you think about the NFL, tight end is not a very productive offensive position these days. You've got the top 2 or 3, and then it drops off a cliff. So I think it's unarguable that Kelsey's definitely number 1 this year. I think overall, Gronk and Kelsey, clearly Gronk has the career stats, and I think he's number 1 in 3 different stats, and Kelsey's number 2. So statistically, Gronk is up there, and he's a difference maker with his size and everything else. But I think this is another one where it's very similar to Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, right? You've got this old guard, new guard, and Kelsey could definitely pass up Gronk, both statistically, and in terms of how he's regarded in the NFL on a historical basis.
Yeah. Now, Phil, I'm gonna take this over to you for a second, and you got 2 incredible tight ends, and listen, there's some great tight ends in the Hall of Fame. You've got the original Mike Ditka, you've got Ozzie Newsome, you've got Kellen Winslow. Are one of these guys, you think, going to go down as the greatest tight end in football history?
Well, without a shadow of a doubt, Travis Kelce is going to obliterate every record when it's all said and done, as long as he doesn't sign somewhere else. And why would he? He's got the best young quarterback in the world throwing him passes. He's got Tyreek Hill and all this speed around him to set up the middle of the field. He would be absolutely out of his mind to ever leave Kansas City.
Yep.
And because he clearly, let's face it, Gronk should be playing another 5 or 6 years. Gronk lived just, let's say, a party life, right? Where, while he loves Tom Brady, he did not emulate anything about how Tom Brady led his life. So, there's no reason why Gronkowski shouldn't have 5 or 6 more top flight years, but his body broke down. Yeah. And even off a year off, he was solid this year for them. He was definitely a Brady safety net at times, but he doesn't have the explosiveness of Kelce. And I would argue he never did. I think Kelsey's a better athlete than Gronkowski. Gronkowski's a little bigger and stronger, more physical. Travis Kelce will absolutely obliterate every tight end record of all time when he hangs it up in 5 or 6 years. And he's going to, Canton first ballot, because the numbers he's going to put up are wide receiver numbers, all-time numbers. And it's a pass league, right? So it's a favor the last decade or two. Travis Kelce is going to go down as the greatest tight end of all time statistically.
Okay.
I would argue Shannon Sharp might be the best tight end of all time. And that's just in a different era for another day. But Travis Kelce is going to obliterate every record when it's all said and done.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. That's So good stuff, guys. Really good stuff. I appreciate everybody's perspective on that. We're going to get into something a little more specific with the game, and we're all going to take an aspect of the game and just talk about it a little bit and kind of throw it out there and talk about all the great things. So we're going to start off with the Kansas City Chiefs offense, and Paul's going to kind of give us the rundown. I know you've been speaking to a lot of the players on the sidelines and in the locker room and everything, and you got a lot of great information. So tell us about what you've learned.
Well, I did just get back from Kansas City, spent some time with the team out there, got some good insights. Here's the thing. I wanted to find some interesting nuggets that might not be as evident to the typical fan, using myself as typical. So things that I found that were interesting. Listen, we all know about the prolific nature of the Kansas City offense this year, particularly the passing, 5,000 yards and all the touchdowns. And we can certainly talk about their performance against the Bucks earlier this year. Tyreek Hill putting up 200 yards plus in the first quarter, that kind of thing. Here's the thing, though, that really, when I started to really dig into the statistics and the performance of the Chiefs this year, that jumped out at me, which was the percentage of their possessions. The possessions where Mahomes played the entire possession that they scored. There were 160 possessions for the season. You had to guess, Darren, and I'm looking at you, what percentage did the Chiefs score in their 160 possessions throughout the regular season?
You talking about touchdowns, or are you talking about just any
score? Touchdowns or field goals?
I'm gonna guess like 30 field goals. I'm gonna guess, I don't know how many touchdowns he had. Let's say 35, 65. Rushing, I would say probably about 80.
Pretty good. 85 of the 160 possessions that the Chiefs had this year, where Mahomes played the whole possession, they scored. 56 of them were touchdowns, 29 of them field goals. But here's the thing. He accelerated that. The Chiefs accelerated that in the playoffs. There were 13 possessions that Mahomes played the entire possession in the playoffs. 7 of those possessions resulted in touchdowns. 6 of them were drives of 75 yards or more.
Wow.
The 3, they had field goals. So there were only 3 drives in the entire playoffs where the defense got off the field. One of them was a missed field goal. Another one was a Tyreek Hill, if you recall, against the Bills. He dropped a sure first down. It would have actually gone for about 30 yards. Just fell right through the peach basket. And that's actually something that was overlooked as well. The Chiefs had a lot of drop passes this year. For all of their success in the passing offense, they actually had a lot of drop passes. The third drive that the Chiefs were stopped was actually their kneel down at the end of the Bills game. So, you got a missed field goal, a dropped first down, and a kneel down. Those were the only 3 times that the defense got off the field against Patrick Mahomes the entire playoffs. So I think the key to the game on Sunday, in my opinion, after my extensive time with the team, sitting down with Andy Reid, really getting inside his head, is can the Bucs defense get off the field? They certainly couldn't do it when they met in the regular season. Chiefs put up over 500 yards of offense in that game. If you remember, they only got 27 points though. But I think most people would argue that the Chiefs were their own worst enemy. They used some trick plays in the game that cost them some points that didn't quite work out, things of that nature. Key to the game is going to be, can the Bucs defense get off the field?
No, that's good. That's good. I'm glad. Thank you for spending some time with those guys. And I got a message earlier from Andy Reid. He says he appreciates all the support, and he's a big listener, big fan of.
Well, I appreciate you letting me take the Phil and the Mike private jet out to Kansas City. That really helps.
Hey, you know what? That's what happens when after 41 episodes, you're doing 7 figures in listeners every week. So good stuff. So a lot of great things about the Kansas City offense. Now, Mark, why don't you talk to us a little about the Bucs defense? I know you were down there. I know you spent a lot of time with Todd Bowles, and Phil and I aren't really big fans of his, but I know he gave you a lot of great insight on the D. What do you got for us?
Yeah, Todd Bowles, great guy. We did a bunch of kamikaze shots together. I mean, that guy is like a party animal, man. Not only is he a brilliant defensive coach, and former head coach of your beloved Jets. He's a good dude. He's a really good dude. So you guys should hang out with him. Yeah, it was a good time in Tampa. Nice warm weather down there. Some pretty great clubs down there too. So good times, good times. Anyway, but yeah, the Bucs defense, it's a bit of a mystery, man. It's like, you don't know what's going to happen with the Bucs defense. You look at their run defense, number one run defense in the NFL this year. 1,200 yards, almost 1,300 yards. Number one by a long shot, right? The next best run defense had 1,450 or 1,500. They shut down the run. You got Ndamukong Suh, who is still, even though it seems like he's been in the league forever, he is still a beast. He's still aggressive. You got your boy JPP from the Giants. Those 11 Giants players clearly got the heck out of New York for good reason, so they can get to a team where they can actually win. So I'm glad they did that. But that front and those linebackers, Shaq Barrett, they're really, really good. So they can put pressure, and they've proven that to put pressure on Mahomes. And the secondary actually played pretty well. Like, one of their corners was ranked number 1 overall, and the other one was like 25th. So it's a little bit shaky. That, like Paul said, that Kansas City offense is almost impossible to stop. Watching some film, on that Kansas City Bucs game, what happened where they got beat was you saw the deep safety when Travis Kelce went in motion to the opposite side of Tariq. That deep safety cheated over to Travis's side, and they burned him every time with Tariq. That's how he got 200 yards. So hopefully Winfield kind of learns his lesson and doesn't cheat to Travis's side, lets the linebackers kind of settle in and cover him, and they keep, they got to double and triple Tariq. And if they don't do that, it's game over for them. So the Bucs are going to stop the run. Their secondary is going to really be be tested. And they've got to be really disciplined on how they're covering Tariq and Travis Kelce. There's a lot of weapons on KC. So it's going to be a tough test, but, we'll see if they can do it.
Oh, great insight, man. Great insight. Yeah, I've heard that Todd Bowles is a great guy to hang out with. Now, I'm curious, when you guys were doing kamikaze shots, were you doing them with the umbrellas in the shot, or did you take the umbrellas out first?
No, dude. Come on, man. You know a kamikaze shot. We used to do
Just
thousands of them. They're delicious.
Yeah,
Vodka, triple sec, and lime juice, man. It's delicious.
They're good. They're good. I can't argue with that. But yeah, so good stuff. Good insight, man. I appreciate that. I have had the honor of doing the Bucs offense, which I'm excited about, and I think it's really interesting because for the last 20 years I've hated Tom Brady, hated with a passion. I think most of it is just out of jealousy. He's all the things that I'm not. All right, he's a pro athlete. He's really tall. He gets to shower with Gronk. Oh wait, I didn't say that out loud. His wife is a supermodel. He just. My God. Could anybody step into a pot of gold like that? I love my life, but man, I don't have that. So, but the incredible thing about the Bucs is their offense has really done some incredible things. If you look, they've won 7 games in a row, including the playoffs. And actually in their last 6, they're putting up almost 36 points a game. So their offense is playing. Their offense is playing really well. We all know about Evans, and we know about Godwin, and we even know about Brown, and, Evans caught 70 passes. Godwin caught 65 passes. Brown caught 45 balls in only 8 games. So, he potentially would have had a 90 reception season right there. So, you got some good things. Everybody hears about that. I think kind of the super unknown guy is that they got a little guy named Tyler Johnson, and he's a speedster. Not many guys might know about him, but the interesting thing is he was actually a 3-time first team all Big Ten receiver. So that says something. It's only a matter of time before I think that guy gets an opportunity, and you never know. I think he might be able to come up with a big catch when nobody's suspecting it, which I like. Their running game is they just have. Can you have any more big names in your backfield? That are okay, I guess. Jones is a good player, but you've got Fournette, who nobody really wanted. You've got LaShawn McCoy, who, Mark, I don't know even why that guy is still playing football, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Tight end, obviously you got Gronk, but I think the unsung hero and what's going to determine whether or not the Bucs win this game is their offensive line. Plain and simple. That's what it comes down to. And let's be honest, they hit a home run with their first round draft pick. They drafted a guy out of Iowa, Tristan Wirfs, who actually was graded as the number 2 right tackle in all of the NFL this year, which is pretty incredible when you think about that. And something else that I want to talk about, their interior linemen, one of their guys, Marpet, he actually went to Division III Hobart. Another guy, their center, Ryan Jensen, went to Division II powerhouse. I know this is the school that Paul was thinking about going to, Colorado State at Pueblo. And their injured offensive lineman, Alex Carpa, he actually went to the other Division II powerhouse, Humboldt State, which I don't even know where that is. And I think he's out of the game, but his replacement is another big-time offensive lineman, a guy named, I think it's Aaron Stinney, and he is from the other Division 1A powerhouse, James Madison. So say what you want. These guys, they've done a good job finding talent, okay? This is a guy that, their offensive line was actually ranked number 5 this year. They only allowed 22 sacks, and they were actually number 4 in the league. They only had pressure on 24% of the dropbacks. So you wonder why Tom Brady had the season he had. It's because of the offensive line. Now, when Tom Brady gets pressured, his QBR was ranked 30th in the league. When he's not under pressure, it was ranked 5th. And I think Paul talked about that before, about how the Giants were able to beat him. You get pressure on him. That's what it comes down to. I mean, he is the most immobile quarterback I think we've seen in a long time. The guy just can't move. And that's fine. You might be in great shape. You might play till you're 100, but dude, you can't move, So I think that's kind of funny. Like, you're not going to see him scramble for 20 yards. You're not going to see him scramble for positive yardage, let's be honest. So I think at the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to. If Brady has enough time, he's got the talent around him that he can do a great job. He can pick apart the defense, but it all comes down to that offensive line and can they protect him. So that's my thoughts on the Bucs offense. Now, conversely, the last one we've got is Sunday Phil. What are your thoughts about the Kansas City defense? I know you spent a lot of time there, and what did you see when they were going through their defensive drills?
I don't know how you guys got down there for all these fun activities, because in this COVID world, everything was virtual for me. A lot of Zoom calls, So you guys hit the lottery with those trips, so that's nice. But when you look at the Kansas City defense, right, there's nothing that you're going to be overly excited about to talk about. You're going to obviously bring up Spagnuolo and the magic act he's been able to pull on Brady twice, but to even remotely compare the front fours that the Giants had, that Spagnuolo was able to operate under with the front four pressure they got without ever having to bring anybody and get picked apart by Brady, Kansas City does not have that. To put it in perspective, Tampa had 55 sacks this year. Kansas City had 37. They don't have a guy with 10 sacks on the roster. Frank Clark's got 8. He's the leading guy. This is going to be an interesting situation. The best thing you could say about Kansas City's defense, and I think you're going to see this, is Spagnuolo is going to take shots because he's got the Kansas City offense to back him up, right? So that's the best thing he's got going for him, and it's a big luxury to have. When you have Mahomes and you have that offense, you could take chances. And if Brady beats you once or twice, I got to look at this game like, if they could pick Brady off once or twice, this game's over.
Yeah.
Brady has to play near flawless. They can't give Kansas City short fields. Brady can't make the mistakes he made in the Green Bay game. Okay. Aaron Rodgers did not have his best performance, but let's face it, Brady threw 3 picks in that second half. He does that against Kansas City. Those are 3 touchdowns the other way. That game is over. It's a blowout. See you later. Tom's not getting the 7th ring. He has to play perfect. So there is a lot of pressure on Brady. I don't think Kansas City's defense has a ton of pressure on it. I think they need to get off the field once or twice in a big spot or create that one big turnover, and they don't have to be very good all game. If they do that, that's going to be enough. If Frank Clark is dominated all game and comes through on one clean sack and causes Brady to fumble, that's all you're going to remember about that game, because Kansas City will make it hold up. So if you look at the stats on Kansas City's defense, it's just not good. And the 2 stats I would look at to tell the tale that really isn't good: 32nd in the league in opponents' red zone scoring. You get in the red zone on Kansas City, you score. period, the end, and 30th and 20th on 3rd and 4th down conversions. They can be picked apart. They can make an occasional big play, but you can move the ball on them. And I think if I'm looking at Tampa, as much firepower as Tampa has on paper, I got to think their offensive game plan is to keep the ball away from Mahomes and to just limit possessions. So they're going to go on every 4th down. I mean, Arians is going. 4th and 4 on his own 30, they're going to be thinking about going, to be honest, because he knows he can't punt to Mahomes too often. So I think Kansas City is going to be aggressive. I think Spagnuolo is going to pick his spots, and I think they know they got Mahomes behind them. So he's looking for 1 or 2 plays. I'm sure all he's telling them, we need 1 or 2 big plays, guys. 1 or 2 big plays, and this game's over before it starts. So I think it's a good luxury to have, but it's the weakest of the 4 units by far. By far. Of all the units, Kansas City's defense is the weakest of the 4. So, they have a few moments they have to create some havoc or make a big play or two, and it'll be enough. But will they do that? Hey, Brady, that's a good defense to face if you're Tom Brady. It's a beatable defense. So let's see how it goes.
That's true. No, great insight. Great insight. Before we get into our picks from our expert panels, Phil, let's just talk about Week 12. I mean, I think people forget that they did play, and they did play in Tampa Bay earlier this season. So before we make our picks, why don't you just kind of give us the summary on that? I know we touched a little bit on it, but tell us what happened in that game.
Well, it's eerie because the game was in Tampa. It wasn't that long ago. It was on CBS. It's got the same crew.
Yep.
I mean, this is a redo from only 6 or 7 weeks ago, right? Romo, eerily enough, basically called the rematch would happen Romo is so much better at that job than he ever was as quarterback. I don't know how he didn't win 5 rings the way he predicts everything's going to happen and it happens. Like the guy's amazing. And I thoroughly enjoy him. So I'm happy that they're doing the game because I like listening to Nance and Romo. I think it's the best booth, honestly. But Week 12, you click on the highlight. I actually went back and watched the game because you look at the highlights, and I think Paul alluded to it. They put 500 and something yards on Tampa. There was one moment in that game where, and it could happen in the Super Bowl too. Kansas City's up 17-0 in that game, and they are steamrolling Tampa. And they're going in for a touchdown to go up 24-0 before Tampa even knows what hit them early in the second quarter. And I forget who, but somebody comes around the end and catches Mahomes, sacks him, strips him, and they pick up the ball. It turned the game around, not immediately, but it saved the game from just being a complete blowout, right? So they get off the field, they get the ball back, they salvage a bit of that game. But if you watch the game, and I did, I mean, it was not a very close 27-24 game. Kansas City did have a few mistakes they made in the game. Tampa did score late a bunch, and kudos to them. They fought like a Tom Brady team would, you would expect to. But when I think about this game and I look back at that, they were a hair away from getting absolutely blown out of that game. And 24-0, I don't care if Tom Brady's on the other side, they're not recovering from that 24-0. So it was that close to being a total blowout. And to be honest, it's how I feel about this game. I feel this game could be very close to being a total blowout, or you get your classic game that everybody's begging to get. Oddly enough, I'm torn between those two outcomes because after watching that game again, there was just things Tampa didn't have an answer for. And if Kansas City's offensive line can hold up at all, Mahomes is going to score a lot. So, it's going to be interesting. But I think the takeaway from Week 12 is how close it was to being a blowout, how they really can never stop Mahomes. I mean, to go for 500 and something yards and only score 27, obviously a couple things went wrong offensively, but Tom Brady threw a pick in that game. He's prone to throw a pick. He's thrown a bunch in this postseason. I just think he's gotten away with all of them. He can't do that Sunday night. He's got to be perfect. I don't know if he's got one more perfect game in him, but he's got to pitch a perfect game. That's just the way he has to think about that game. So there's a lot of pressure on him to be perfect. But yeah, that's what I thought about for Week 12, just how close that was to almost being a blowout, but they salvaged it, made it a game. So let's get to crunch time. Let's get to crunch time with where everybody thinks about this game. So why don't we start with Paul? What do you think? What's your prediction?
I think the Chiefs are not going to shoot themselves in the foot the way they did in Week 12. My prediction is Chiefs 37-24.
All right. That's a solid. I think that's the type of scoring people expect it to be, and it's interesting. So you got Kansas City. You think it's a comfortable 13-point win? Because not all 13-point wins are created equal. Do you think it's a comfortable game from start to finish?
I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be entertaining, but I think it's going to be one that as a fan, as a viewer watching, we're never going to really feel like is in doubt.
Okay. And what do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty close to that. I like the Chiefs. I'm a little bit more. I mean, I got them 37-30 over the Bucks, but I think it's going to be a real close 37-30. I think Brady's got an interception in him that he's going to throw. I mean, he's going to underestimate some of those corners. And on the other side of the ball, like I said, I mean, I watched some of that film like you did, Phil, on the Week 12, and the safeties made some critical mistakes. I mean, 200 plus of those 500 yards were Tyreek. So I think they've learned from that. I mean, you look at what they did against Aaron Rodgers, right? I think he threw 3 interceptions in a game. So Aaron Rodgers doesn't do that. They figured some stuff out, and I think it's going to be a lot more competitive than that Week 12 game. But I still like the Chiefs. I mean, too much firepower, too many weapons, against that secondary. And I think this could be one of those games too where everybody's thinking, oh, Tampa Bay number one against the run, and Andy Reid just gets cute and just runs for 200 yards and beats them that way. So, I think it's going to be really interesting. I think there's going to be a twist, but I like the Chiefs 37-30.
All right. We got 2 Kansas City picks. What about you, Mr. Co-host? What are you thinking?
Well, you know what? The one thing that nobody ever talked about was, Kansas City's starting left tackle is out. I mean, he's not playing, and he's a former number 1 draft pick out of where Central Michigan or something. I mean, I didn't even know they played football there. It was pretty crazy. I remember when he was picked, I was like, who the heck is this guy? But he's obviously he's been in the league for a while. He's a very good left tackle, and with the Bucks pass rush, and I like to say it, you're down with JPP. Hey, you know me. So, I don't know if they're going to be able to. I have a feeling that they're going to be wrecking some havoc, and I don't think it's going to be as easy. I think Mahomes is going to be doing more scrambling than usual, and it's going to cause him to make that extra mistake. And I got to be honest with you guys, and all of our listeners will know, when Phil and I first did our NFL preview show, and I said to Phil, I said, who do you have in the Super Bowl? And he goes, I have the Chiefs over Dallas. And we all know how that worked out. And he said,
and I like a mulligan. Okay. Stop bringing that up. I didn't know Prescott was going to get hurt for the year.
And the funny thing is you've got 2 NFC East fans that are like beside themselves laughing at you. So, but that's not the point. The point here is that Phil also asked me, he said, Darren, you are an awful picker of NFL games. Terrible. You are so awful. And I said, yeah, I am. I am. And he said, go ahead, make me laugh. And I said, my prediction is that the Chiefs are going to face the Bucks in the Super Bowl, and the Bucks are going to win. So,
wow.
I have to stick with what I said. I can remember Phil was laughing at me the whole time. And man, you know what? The best part of this game, when the Bucks win 31-30 with a 4th quarter comeback by Tom Brady, when they get the go-ahead field goal to win the game by Mr. Irrelevant. Tom Brady wins his 7th ring. He is definitely 100% the greatest of all time. And I can't wait to hear him interviewed after the game. And they say, hey, is there anybody you want to thank? And then he's going to say, I listened to Phil on the mic. And Darren had predicted that we were going to win the Super Bowl, and I couldn't let him down. So to my man, D, this is for you. That's what I'm saying. And that's why I'm going with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers 31-30.
So So we did talk about this, and that's a good pick. And I would expect you to do nothing. You have to pick the Bucks. I mean, you called it months ago, so you got to stick to it. So I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. You know, I don't normally find myself so torn between thinking Kansas City is going to annihilate them.
Yeah.
And Tampa's going to pull off an absurd win. And the reason I'm torn between these two things is because the logical side of things say Kansas City could score every time they have the ball. And Tom Brady, if he plays anywhere near how he's played this postseason, he hasn't been that good, quite frankly. He's made a lot of mistakes. He has made a few really big throws, and he's done a few really great things. But he really has been very average. And any of those performances get a butt whooping this coming Sunday night. I mean, that's just a fact. But he's Tom Brady, and it feels like just like in that Packer game, just like in that Saints game, not the Washington game as much, but things break his way. I mean, you don't get to 10 Super Bowls because you have bad luck, and you don't get to 10 Super Bowls and win 6 so far because you don't catch a couple things that go your way, a couple calls, a couple phantom holdings, a couple questionable thises and that's. And so I'm trying to still be torn between those two items. And I wanted to see where you went, Darren, because at the end of the day, as your co-host and someone who's made a lot of NFL picks with you, I know, quite frankly, how bad you are overall. And so at the end of the day, you've made my decision for me, and I'm going to go with my original gut feeling, which was 33-17. And it's going to feel a little like Peyton Manning in that Seattle game where the bloom just kind of fell off, and it's like the slipper, it was like midnight and Cinderella turned back into the pumpkin. I just think he's just gotten every break he could get through this postseason. And when he looks across the field, this time he sees the better version of himself 20 years younger. And I just don't think he's got it in him this Sunday night. I think it starts off cute. I even think Tampa may have an early lead, and then the doors just get blown off in just like a 3-touchdown blitz in the second quarter that makes you put it to bed. So I'm going to go 33-17. Mahomes has got his second MVP, and everybody in the Northeast or everybody in the New York market can rest easy that Brady does not have his 7th ring.
All right. Fair enough. Hey, listen, guys, I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys all being wagon jumpers and me being the only one that's actually going to make money on this game. So what I'm going to do, since you guys are all going to not make our fans any money on this game, and I'm going to give you all the opportunity to make a good prop bet. So at least our listeners have a chance to make some money. Okay. So, Paul, I'm going to start off with you. All right. What color Gatorade do you think will be dumped on the winning coach?
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with the yellow, the lemon or whatever it's called. It's got to be the yellow.
Got to be the yellow. The old staple. I think that was the original Gatorade, wasn't it? The yellow color.
I believe the original, which was the '86 Giants, was orange. Actually,
Orange, yep.
All right.
Orange, yep.
Harry Carson.
Harry Carson. Yeah, that guy was a beast. All right, so we got yellow. We got yellow Gatorade. So take that to the bank right there. Mark, here's your question. The over/under is 119.5 seconds. Will the national anthem be less than that, or will it be longer than that?
Yeah, I've actually thought a lot about this prop bet, quite a bit. I've done a lot of research. And before I go there, though, I do want to say, Darren, that even though I picked the Chiefs, I did put a somewhat significant wager on the Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl at 14-1 in April. So I got to figure out if I'm going to hedge or not to lock in a guaranteed 500 or to roll it for maybe 3 times that. We'll see what happens. But
Ride that baby.
I think I'm just gonna let it ride. So we'll see. Anyway, back to your question. So the national anthem is being sung by not one but 2 people this year. Eric Church, and there's one other person. I believe Eric Church is country. Everything in country is a little slower. So I'm going over, 100% over.
Including the people.
I like it. I like the rationale. I like it.
Everything gets thrown out.
All right. All right, Phil, now it's your turn. Your prop bet. Coin toss. Is it going to be heads or tails?
Oh, God.
This is a tough. Listen, man, you got a 50-50 shot here, just like Mark's. Now, Now, Paul's took a lot of valuable insight. I mean, he really had to think about that one, but you guys have easy ones here.
No, well, I went back and looked at the previous 54. No, I'm just kidding. I'll go tails. Let's go tails.
You think what?
Tails. We'll go tails.
You're gonna go tails. All right. You're kind of a butt man anyway, so that makes sense. All right.
Exactly.
That's good. So that's good. So guys, listen, it's exciting. I know you guys are excited about it. The only bad thing about this Super Bowl is that there's no Super Bowl parties. You know, we're all kind of stuck in our houses during this COVID thing, and you know, hopefully it's a great game. You know, hopefully it's a great game. That's all that I can say. But Mark, Paul, thank you both for joining the podcast, and appreciate you guys. Appreciate your support of the podcast. Make sure you let everybody know that you guys are about to become podcast celebrities, and definitely stars. And I'm so glad that you guys were able to join us. It's been a great Super Bowl preview. And Phil, your insight as always is on the mark, except for that Cowboys pick was horrible. But besides that, your insight is great.
Hey, it's been a fun season, a fun ride with you. Appreciate everybody listening, and looking forward to a good Super Bowl. Let's take it home with a bang this Super Bowl.
No, that sounds good. And Mark and Paul, thanks again, and hope you guys are willing to come back on the show. I think this has been a lot of fun, and hopefully we can do this again soon and get a little healthy debates going on all kinds of topics. So thank you guys for joining, and hope everybody enjoys the Super Bowl. And if you want to make some money, like I said, put all your money, take out a mortgage on your house, and bet on the Bucks. Just saying. So,
Thanks a lot, guys.
all right,
Enjoy the
guys,
game.
take care and enjoy the game, everybody. Thanks.